All right, welcome back to the channel. Hymns are ruining the church. There, I said it. Hymns are ruining the church. I have Nathan Drake. What? Hymns rock. Well, we'll see about that. I have Nathan Drake here today, and I'm glad you're here to discuss this very pressing issue. And I wanted to bring in someone who would have some opinions. But before I do, I just want to lay the groundwork of why I would make such a huge claim. And I have three reasons. Three reasons why hymns are ruining the church. Number one, hymns are way too repetitive. I did some research. Jesus Christ is risen today has like these verses, and every 50% of the song is the word hallelujah or alleluia. And the same is true with Christ the Lord is risen today. Very similar song, almost the same exact song. I don't know what it is with these older hymn type songs. They just say the same thing. And I would think there would be need for more theologically rich lyrics instead of 100 different ways to say the same word. So I don't know what it is with these old hymns. Number two reason why hymns are ruining the church is that they downplay the importance of Jesus. Listen to these titles. Listen to these titles of songs that you probably know. Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. No Jesus. Shall We Gather at the River? No Jesus.
No Jesus.
Children of the Heavenly Father. Cool. Yet no Jesus. Check this one out. Great is Thy Faithfulness.
Where's the Jesus?
Where's Jesus? Okay, obviously there might be some hymns with Jesus, but you can see the majority don't. Number three, hymns are overly emotional and individualistic. Okay, notice the me, mine, and I of these lyrics and titles. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Just as I am, what a friend I have in Jesus. I mean, I don't even understand why people even sing these songs anymore. Jesus loves me. It is well with my soul. Obviously, we have a problem.
Well,
Nathan, what are we going to do?
Well, I'm clearly about to quit my day job, unfortunately.
As you should. Okay, so
open my eyes.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
That's all we needed. Video closed. So let me know down in the comments if you agree. Let me know your favorite hymns that also have no gospel or Jesus in them. But of course, I'm being ridiculous. Okay, I'm being ridiculous. That's not fair. That's not fair to hymns. No, I was just telling Nathan, I found this little blog article that I want to, I'll link it down below, but it was thedigitalpastor.org. And I know nothing about that blog. I just happened upon it. But his main point was that there's some good traditional music hymns, and there's some bad stuff. And we probably don't even know all the bad stuff because it probably didn't stand the test of time. And then, and there's good modern worship music, but there's also bad modern worship music. So the point is, as worship leaders, we are, do the best with what we have to feed our churches the best that we possibly can and give them what they need. So the actual problem I see is that actually hymns are fading, and we do have more and more new music coming out than ever, like with Spotify and just social media in general. Like anybody can write a song, put it out there, and a lot of people can hear it. It's a very crowded space, probably more than ever for songwriters. I'm not a songwriter, so I don't know. But anyways, I want to introduce you, Nathan Drake, the creator, founder of Reawaken Hymns. Introduce yourself a little bit, but I want to start off with a question. With all this new music coming out today, why should we invest in this really old, ancient music? So tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll get into it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am Nathan Drake, as you said. I started accidentally Reawaken Hymns 8 years ago. I was just making charts for my own church because I wanted modern versions of hymns that fit in modern worship but didn't have a lot of the extra stuff like the choruses or weren't changed. Not that I have anything against that per se. That's just not what I needed for my church at that time. So I started making my own, putting them online. More churches started using them, and eventually it became a thing. And so now Reawaken Hymns is Reawaken Hymns, and it's been a crazy ride, and I'm so thankful and still amazed that God would do that. And I'm still very confused about all of it. So, but that's how God works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's been crazy. So yeah, that's if you've never stumbled across Reawaken Hymns. It's modern arrangements of old classic hymns and almost all of them, the lyrics and the melody are the same as they always were, so that people who knew them before can straight sing along with them right away. They're just put with very modern worship sounding music so that they fit right next to, songs by people named Wickham or Tomlin or whoever.
Yeah. And I'll just go ahead and say right up front that I have followed you for years, and I've like watched your videos, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need a rendition of this song. But I didn't until recently, because I was a typical YouTuber. Like, my viewers aren't. These guys are good. But I didn't click on anything until recently, and I was like, oh wow, there's way more resources here than I even realized. Like, you have tracks, loops, and stuff that can go along with it, of the renditions you do, and a lot more stuff. Is there more things right here? Like, where can they find you?
Yeah, reawakenhymns.com. You'll find everything. And then the music itself is all on the music places, Spotify and whatever, all those places, YouTube. And then you can get multi-tracks, as he said, and those are on my website, or you can get them on all the multi-track places, multitracks.com, Loop, Worship Backing Band, all those sites. Okay. And then I have like lyric videos, and there's devotionals, there's chord books, worship source books, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So just go on reawakenhymns.com, and there's all kinds of stuff. That
is awesome, man. Okay, so then what do we do? Like, obviously you've invested in hymns, you think there's value there. Share. I think, there's so much new music. Sometimes I think, even if we're not intentionally not doing hymns, it's like they're not even on our minds anymore, because we have all this new stuff. We got the new Phil Wickham song and whoever's coming out with new music. Why should we invest in the old songs?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have a great answer for it. I don't know.
Good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you. I don't know if your particular church, should invest in hymns. I would guess, and I would say that 90% of your churches could benefit from hymns, but I am not in your church. And there are some churches that have an incredibly diverse, balanced repertoire of music, and it's all modern, and the whole church can sing along with it. And in that case, you know what? You could introduce hymns, you could not. They may have value, they may not. I don't know. For most churches, I will say, 80 to 90% of churches, I would guess, adding some hymns, some good hymns, not any of the terrible ones we listed before, but some good hymns, can add to your worship repertoire in a whole bunch of ways. I mean, we can get into that more, of what kind of hymns can do to your worship repertoire, but in general, they can add things that you might not have in the repertoire. And if you are the sort of person who kind of just picks the latest and greatest song, then unfortunately all of your songs are about God fighting battles for you.
That's a theme. That's a hot theme right now.
Yeah, seriously, it's like, I mean, it's a great theme, but like, write about something else, guys. Like, there's other topics. So, I mean, you can get that more balance with modern worship music too, but yeah, there's a lot to be said for talking about more than that.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're valuable. We are, the church I'm at now, I've been there about 6 years, and the church I was at before kind of set me up for success, as they were very essential in my worship leader training. And they would have like a library of songs, like a spreadsheet or something. There were columns. It was like older modern songs, newer modern, meaning like which ones we're going to be introducing or have introduced recently, and then hymns. And they were like, a service should have songs from each of these categories in them, meaning like, let's don't neglect the hymns. They don't all have to be hymns, but try not to let a Sunday go by and not sing at least one hymn. And if it does, it's not that strict, but maybe sing 2 or 3 hymns the next week. And so that's kind of the balance that I have found at my church. There are some weeks where I'm like, oh, you know what? We didn't even sing a hymn this week. But then there are some weeks where I'm like, all right, let's do like most of them hymns, if not all, older hymns. And if you have a newer rendition of it, it doesn't even really like stick out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I would say to people, especially if they have hang-ups over the word hymns. When I plan worship, honestly, I don't even think about whether a song is a hymn or not. All I care about is this a good, theologically rich song that my congregation can sing with me? Yeah. Sometimes that's a hymn, sometimes that's a modern song. And like, often the services will be like 50-50 hymns and modern, but that's not on purpose. I'm just picking the songs that are best that week. And as long as, again, like if you have a repertoire, I'm a huge proponent of having an actual worship repertoire, by the way. if you make that balanced with themes and hymns and like the Trinity, like Father, Son, Spirit, talk about all the character of God. God's huge. There's a lot of topics more than him fighting battles or whatever the latest topic is. If your worship repertoire is balanced and all that, you don't even have to think about whether it's a hymn or not,
right?
Or whether it's modern or where it came from or all this. Like, I don't know. It sounds weird from somebody who was all about hymns, but yeah, just kind of forget their hymns. It's not an important fact, to be honest. They're just good songs that your congregation can sing with you.
Yeah, and what it does is it gives you like. It opens up. So like what we were just almost hitting on it, but you know, some worship leaders on some weeks may want to know what the pastor's preaching on, the theme of what he's saying, so they can base the worship set around that, or at least have a song tie into that. And if a lot of your songs are about, you know, God going to battle for you, like we said, it's not bad. But if you need more content to fit, hymns are a great way to do that, because there's years and years of really good content that's been written that you might just be missing out on. For sure.
Yeah.
All right, what else, man? Is there any other things? Like why hymns? If I was going to ask, here's another question. Let me see if I can fit it. What would you say to people who are and I think you kind of already hit on this, but this is a question I already had written down. Would you say to people who are like, we only sing hymns, we don't sing any of that modern trash out there now? Is there any value then, now that you've invested a lot in hymns, what is the value of modern worship music that you see?
Yeah. Boy, that's a loaded question.
Isn't it?
Well, if they use the word trash, I would probably smack the guitar out of their hands.
Right.
Yeah, but that's true. And I get those comments a lot. There's an issue with the church. This is totally off topic. It's an issue with humanity in general. And I just want to throw it out there. When you give somebody a compliment, try to do so without insulting the opposite thing or comparing it to something else. Like after church this week and after church every week, I got several compliments. And almost all of them were, I love it when you lead worship because I don't like it when this guy leads worship. Or something to that degree. And
yes.
I'm like, thank you. Like, I guess. But
or even when it's about you. Like, I love it when you sing this kind of song as opposed to when you sing those other trash songs.
Yeah. Or like the low key, like, I could actually understand you today. Wait, what?
Yes.
But so I get that a ton with the hymn thing, is people be like, thank you so much for doing hymns. Modern music is terrible. I'm like, could have you just stopped the sentence like right there of that?
That's actually good. I want to hear from the people watching. Like, let me know down in the comments, because it happens to me all the time. Like, what backhanded compliments have you gotten? Go ahead and write those down there. I'd like to hear those.
Yeah, totally. We should have done the video about that.
We should have. We'll do another video. What
are those called? Oh, negs. That's negs. The negative compliments.
Negs. Is that the new? I might be too old. I didn't.
I'm too old. It was on like Big Bang Theory or something.
Oh, okay. Oh, see that is
all
old.
my cultural relevance comes from sitcoms. So.
There you go.
That's when like it's the creepy thing where guys go to a bar and they give the girls negative compliments. Like, I think the example in the show was like, I don't usually like greasy hair, but on you it looks great. Like, I think those are negs. So yeah, we get negs all the time in church.
The church is filled with negs. Yeah, you get them and you're like, okay, I'll just smile and okay, yeah. What do I do with that?
So again, the value of modern worship, I think, is in a lot of ways the same value as hymns, and that it adds that balanced viewpoints and that diversity in your worship services. And honestly, it's interesting. Modern worship music, I love. A lot of people hate the music behind modern worship music. They're like, "Oh, it's so derivative. It's YouTube, whatever." Mm-hmm. But I don't think so. I think it's its completely own style, and I think it's a fantastic style. Like Hillsong, Elevation, all those guys are kind of leading the charge as far as the music is concerned. I have lyrical issues with them, but as far as the music is concerned, I think it's brilliant. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wish hymns had music like that. So that's what I did. I put like that with hymns. But yeah, modern worship music I love, and it's interesting because neither of those two things are sacred in themselves. There's nothing sacred about hymns. There's nothing sacred about modern worship music, and neither of them are either better in every scenario. Like I've been in churches where they'd play a lot of hymns, and I introduced some modern songs, and they would struggle to sing modern songs. And they'd be like, oh, well, that's because modern songs are terrible and hard to sing. But then I'd be in churches that sang all modern songs, and I'd try to introduce hymns, and they had a problem with hymns because they're hard to sing. Well, hymns are hard to sing. And I'm like, it's not anything about the like inherent value of these. It's just if you're used to this, then this is easier. And if you're used to this, this is easier. And in your church, I would guess, in most churches watching, you have both of those people in your congregations right now. So a comment I got a lot, which was the opposite of what I would get. So I was making these hymns into kind of modern songs. So I kind of assumed I would get a lot of like younger people hearing them for the first time and saying, oh, this isn't as terrible as I thought it was. And I do get those comments, which is nice. But a lot of the comments I get from worship leaders, which is even better now I realize, is they're like, hey, we played this, and like the older people in our congregation were so happy because they didn't feel left behind that week. And I'm like, yes. Like it's not about nostalgia. It's not about preference. It's not about that. It's just about the fact that in corporate worship, the point is for you to lead your people in singing. Every single person in that room, you are serving and leading and singing. So if some of them feel left behind for whatever reason that goes beyond preferences, help them. Help them to worship. That's our job as worship leaders. Help them to worship. So if you have a lot of older folks who are trying really hard to learn the modern stuff, but it's hard, throwing in some like hymns, like in a modern style, I think they'll be so happy, and it'll help them worship. And that's our job. So
yeah, that's great. I was actually going to like recap some stuff at the end or make some points, but I'm just going to say it right now because it leads right into what you're saying. I like to say treat your church, your ministry as a mission field. And so what I mean by that is a lot of times it helps me because we're over here. I'm in America. You're in America. Probably majority of my viewers are, or in a similar type place where we have the internet, we have access to all this new stuff out there. And we try to take Hillsong, Bethel, Elevation and bring that here because we see that as good and excellent and money's thrown at it, so it looks amazing. We try to bring that here, and then it doesn't work or it flops, and it's weird. And a lot of worship leaders, myself included, back in the early days, I would like get depressed, like man, these people just don't get it. And really, it was me not getting my role. And so once I learned to like treat my community, my context as a mission field, then I start looking at it like, what do they need? What do we need that is separate from everything else? What will offend? What do I need? What roadblocks or barriers do I need to step lightly on so that the gospel can shine through? Like as a missionary, you think, you go somewhere and if you're supposed to take your shoes off and you just walk straight through their living room with shoes on, like you're offending them to the core to where they may not hear the gospel you're about to preach. So that's this kind of the same word picture. I'm thinking like, we don't need to go in and just offend people just because to the detriment of the gospel. So treating your ministry like a mission field kind of sets the stage. Like, okay, what is this? We start asking those important questions. What will make the gospel shine? And just trying to be like someone else is never really the best option.
Yeah, that's what you said too is a great example of the Paul, when Paul said kind of I'm trying to be everything to everyone. That gets so misconstrued all the time, but like the example of taking off your shoes, that's a great example, exactly what Paul was talking about. He's not talking about let's go and suit everybody's preferences and their personal desires and all that. He's saying if something is getting in the way of someone hearing the gospel, get rid of it. If your shoes are getting in the way of somebody hearing the gospel, take off your shoes.
Yeah.
If never playing a hymn is getting in the way of people learning about God, play some hymns. If playing modern worship is doing like anything.
Yeah. Yeah. The next thing, I saw an interview. It's a longer interview, and I haven't watched the whole thing, but I saw some little clips on YouTube, and I can't remember the channel it was on, but it was a guy that I didn't know interviewing Stephaniegretzinger, a vocalist from Bethel. I don't know if she's still with them or not, but I didn't know what to expect when I clicked on it, but the whole video was like 14 minutes long, and I was just like, yes, she was saying all these things. And one of the main takeaways was just like, and it's not a new discussion, but I think it was refreshing hearing it from her. And it was even like challenging to me, especially with new songs coming out. Like we were just joking about, God winning the battle for us and stuff. But she was saying a lot of the newer stuff has just shifted to the benefits that we get from God. It's not biblical. It's not like it's not true, and it's excellent stuff. But when we gather, we're coming to take our eyes off of ourselves and put them back on Jesus. And so whether that's older hymns that help us do that, or even newer songs that help us do that, I think that's something else that as worship leaders, we need to be very careful with, to make sure that we're not just talking about the benefits we get from God without just making the majority of the time just be about him, because we're coming together to give him worth, give him praise. As you've looked at some of these older hymns, because I know you've done this more than I have, because I'm feeling challenged now to like get to maybe open my library with more hymns. Have you seen more of a balance of that, of focus on, or is it kind of just like it is with modern hymns? Like, well, some do, some don't.
As far as hymnody in general?
Yeah, from your experience, maybe I was unclear with that. Hymnody in general, some of the older stuff, is it more directed toward God than maybe some of the more modern worship stuff? Or do you find it about the same, of like about God, but also benefits from him?
That is, oh my gosh. All right. Are you ready for the hour-long answer? That's
Here we go.
a question. Okay. It won't be an hour. So yes and no. Hymnody in general, like the big scope of it, I would say in some ways is just as iffy at times as the modern catalog is. Now, as you said in the beginning, it's been narrowed down for 500 years, and the modern stuff hasn't, so there's that going on. But if you took every hymn, I mean, think of this. Charles Wesley, just one hymn writer. Charles Wesley wrote about 10,000 hymns.
Prolific.
10,000. Right. So, and how many can we name? 4. I can name 4, and I do hymns. Like, so how much of that was like modern worship music, where they're like, oh, this is gross, and this is, like, I bet 5,000 hymns from this one hymn writer were like, nuh-uh, like, this is terrible. And they're gone now, so it's been narrowed down. But a lot of the ones that have lasted do tend to have a little richer theology. And I say tend because there's also some hymns that have sustained and are sung regularly and are people's favorite hymns that are some of the worst worship songs I've ever heard in my life. And I would name them, but when I do, I always get somebody that says, oh, I played that at my grandma's funeral and now I hate you.
Oh,
yeah. I'll just say one of them is about walking in a certain place with lots of plants in it. I'll just say that.
You're exactly right, because that was what my one grandfather's favorite, and my other grandpa's favorite was another one of those in that same category. Yeah. So,
and it tends to, there's actually a genre. It tends to be like hymns written from like 1890 to like 1930. They kind of got into pop music, which is weird, and they got ultra sentimental in the like kind of Baptist revival, let's all cry at the altar sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really bad nostalgic sentimental hymns from that time. So as long as you're careful, you can get all kinds of great theologically rich songs just like modern worship music.
Yeah. Kind of like the caricature I was saying at the front. Like there is some truth in that for sure, but you just have to be smart.
And there's what there is, I will say, is currently there's a lot more variance in themes in hymns, both in a good way and a bad way. Like, okay, maybe you didn't need to write a hymn about like Isaiah 4 and stomping grapes or something, like an entire song about that. Like maybe that was a bad idea. But in general, you can find a more vast collection of themes in hymnody. And I think that in itself is a great reason to like add some, because you'll get like bits of the character of God that you don't always sing about. And if we can expand people's knowledge of the character of God, like that in itself is just awesome. So yeah, I do think hymns can have some wider scope of knowledge of the character of God, but not all hymns are necessarily better than all modern songs as far as being focused on God.
Man, that's great. And it reminds me of like, there's a chapter from a book called The Worship Pastor by Zach Hicks. It's a great book. You should go check it out. But in there, he talks about the theological dietitian and talking about that balanced diet. So, you think of an actual dietitian putting someone on a certain regimen for a certain, maybe they're trying to bulk up, or maybe they're trying to lean down. They have a certain diet that's tailored to that specific person, and it might be like a daily diet, weekly, and even monthly, and it might change. So I think of like bodybuilders. I've heard, obviously I'm not one, have different diets per, if they're trying to bulk up, but now we're about to do the competition, so I'm actually going to lean down and get rid of that extra fat or whatever it is. I think the same thing can be applied, and as was shared in that chapter about some worship songs is hard. It is highlighted on like Good Friday, trying to pick out Good Friday songs without mentioning the resurrection, because there's not a lot of songs that mention like our sin and Jesus dying on the cross, but then not also heading to the resurrection. So a lot of songs have like this whole arc to them, and that's great. But having like the balanced diet, thinking like we need to sing about Jesus today, but they don't all need to be battle songs, or they all don't need to be saying I am doing something, like I surrender all the time. There's nothing wrong with saying I surrender, but if it's overplayed or overdone, then it's like, well, I'm actually the one doing all this, and so he just talks about having like a balanced diet per service, but then even thinking like over a month, like you're in this for the long term. You're not trying to cram everything, just like we don't try to cram every single nutrient into every single meal. There's space to do a balanced diet over like a month, let's say. And so that's really helped me think through like, okay, this Sunday might not even have a hymn, like I said earlier, but then the next Sunday we might catch up and, sing 3 hymns instead. So I think having that, thinking about a balanced diet and what your specific context needs may not be the same thing that's being released all the time. Like Elevation's releasing something, or Passion releases something, and it's all good stuff, but that might not be what your church needs that coming week. And so you're right. Hymns gives us a whole nother layer of depth there that we can explore.
Yeah, and if you just kind of get off of the top 100 too, you'll get there. Like, an unfortunate truth of current worship music is that most of the churches putting out the current top 100 are all of the exact same theological area. Like, exactly. So that's why they're all, battle songs are like, she said they were all, what did she say in the interview you said? It was really good.
Oh, she was talking about just being,
they're all like
benefits.
Yeah.
Benefits.
Yeah. So when, again, I don't want to start any fights, but when half of the songs on the top CCLI 100 are coming from churches that preach the prosperity gospel, it's very unsurprising that all of them are going to be focused on the benefits that we get from God. That's not surprising. So even if we just go and that's not a modern worship music thing, that's just the top churches that are producing the music are all the same theological thing. So just back off of that. There's tons of great modern worship music coming from all different sorts of theological backgrounds.
I can think of some. If you can think of some, I've been pulling from City of Light. I have some. Yeah. There's some good songs.
They are awesome.
We the Kingdom. I've done some of theirs.
We the Kingdom. Yeah.
God
Matt
So
Boswell.
Loved. Yeah, Matt Boswell. What else?
Song and Grace.
I've heard of them. Yeah. No. Yeah. We do some of their stuff as well. So there's a bunch of good stuff.
Props to Phil Wickham too. I know he's kind of related to the whole Bethel thing if you're against that sort of stuff, but his songs, like he's got some deeply like Living Hope is some of the best modern worship lyrics that I've heard in a long time. Like they're good.
Yeah. Living Hope, Hymn of Heaven, we'll do. So here's a hot topic. Wait, no, is that what you call it? Hot take. He wrote Sunday is Coming.
Yeah.
And there was one, I was like, ooh, that could be cool. Maybe using that as a special, put a lyric video up, but I couldn't get myself to do it for one reason. And it was the lyric where he's like, devil, you better start running or something. Son, you better start running. And I was like, I remembered somebody saying sometime like, hey, we shouldn't be addressing Satan in our worship services. And that might not be that big a deal, but that kept me from doing that song because I was like, I'm in a seminary town and I got professors in my church, and that's my context. It may not be a problem somewhere else, but for me, I was like, this is not this would not be wise just because it's new and shiny and everyone's doing it and it's out just in time for Easter. But anyways, that was just me doing what I'm preaching. Like, I had to figure out what was appropriate for my context at the right time, and I decided.
See, that's awesome. Whether or not that decision is right for other churches, that example. Other churches follow Jimmy's example. Like, you don't have, like, just think through the lyrics. That's what I'm always saying. Just read the lyrics before you sing them. Please, at least once, read the lyrics before you sing it. Because there might be a line in there that actually doesn't agree with your church's theology, even if it's not necessarily wrong in others. Like, just we should never be making people sing things that they shouldn't be singing. And that's the wild responsibility of a worship leader, is that we get to vet those things, and it terrifies me that God has given me that responsibility sometimes, so I take it very, very seriously. Not to be all weird and downy, but
Yeah, no, that's great, and I'll say it's a good statement to say, but at the same time, it can be difficult. We get excited with new songs, because I'm the same way. I'm like, ooh, this song is awesome. We've been listening to it at the house, and then I'll read the lyrics one time. No, but I'm singing along, and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good, and then I'll go to actually read the lyrics, and I'll find like one small phrase or something that I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. Or I don't know if that's best to say. Maybe it's not even wrong, but I don't know if it's best. I think of another one that came up, and this is a popular song. Maybe this will just be a hot take video. People will definitely unlike this video, and
I like it.
It's fine. But at our church, we decided not to do, and I was going to do it, and then I just talked with one of my elders, and they're like, let's talk about it some more. And I thought about it, I was like, well, I don't want to do this song. But it was I Speak Jesus by Charity Gale. She has Thank You Jesus for the Blood, which I think is an amazing song. And then I Speak Jesus was another one. I was like, oh yeah, for the most part it sounds pretty good. But then I didn't think about it in this context until one of my elders brought it up, and he was just asking, he's like, is it this? And I was like, yeah, it probably is. And so like the name it, claim it, health and wealth type, like I'm speaking Jesus as if it's like a magical word, like something mystical.
You're manifesting Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't, for some reason, I didn't think about it like that at first. Yeah. But now that it was said that way, I was like, yeah, it kind of is. And I don't want to, like, I would have to explain it every time I sing it. And maybe I do. Maybe I choose to do that or whatever. But I just didn't feel like I would have to do that every time. And so I was like, hey, just like you said, there are a million, I don't know. There's a bunch of other songs out there that we can sing that are good. Yeah. So anyways.
Some people might say, okay, it's one line, so it's fine. Just don't be picky, sing it anyway. But again, when there's literally a million songs out there, why choose one that's iffy when there's one that's not? Like,
right.
The only reason I can think of is because you've already formed an emotional attachment to it, which is not a great way to pick worship songs. But.
And I can get that way sometimes.
I do too. Well, everybody does. Yeah. There are songs that I've done on Reawaken hymns, and I did them like when I started 8 years ago, and I've since kind of grown in my maturity and understanding. And I now tell people, songs that I've done, don't do that in worship. It's a terrible song. Like, so it's not like you don't have to be perfect. Nobody has to be perfect in this.
Right.
Just
just do the best what you got. Make the best make the best next right decision or whatever that people. Yeah. I like it. And in that interview with Stephaniegretzinger, she says the same thing. She said, I've written songs that are more benefit driven. She's like, that I wouldn't do now. And it was cool just to hear that. So if you haven't seen that interview, go check that out. But another thing about the hymns, I was going to ask you about Reawaken hymns specifically, is did you say at the beginning that you try to keep like the melody the same and change the music?
Yep. Melody and lyrics, I don't change.
Okay.
Simply because, so there's a lot of modern hymns out there. What there wasn't a lot of that I could find were ones that were unchanged as far as people still being able to sing them in the same way. And that's what I needed. And when you talk about like the older people in your congregation being able to participate, if you're changing the lyrics and stuff, then that doesn't that purpose doesn't happen anymore. So
Right.
if that's what you're going for, you kind of need to keep the lyrics and melody the same. So that's kind of the like stated purpose of Reawaken hymns, as is different than other modern hymns, is I keep the lyrics and the melody the same so that they can be sung by people who already knew them. I just update the music quite a bit so that it fits within modern worship music.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have 2 stories of being dumb about this.
So this is either the hot take video or the
Yeah.
dumb things we've done video. I like both of them.
It's yes. I went to a small country church in this area where I'm at now a few years back. I think I went 2 years in a row to do a revival. It was a revival, and I don't know that it was actually a revival, but that's what it was called. And I sang this song that goes, Blessed Assurance, this is my story. And I moved it from 3/4 to like 6/8. So I made everything a little bit longer. So instead of, this is my story, this is my song, it was just more modern, maybe. You know, I don't know if you ever do the time signature change thing, but they took off without me. Like, I started that song and I was like, I played the intro and I was like, whatever the first word is, I started, and they loved that. It was kind of cool, actually. They loved that song so much, and they just let it. And I just had to let them lead it because they were not singing my version, and they didn't need to. That was the point. I learned something that day. And then this one mixes that same story with the backhanded compliments. I was leading at another church in the area where I was a worship leader, and Ascend the Hill came out with their hymns album several years back, and they changed a lot of things, you know, and put choruses to different things. And they had How Great Thou Art, and it was, you know, very rhythmic and very weird, basically. So if you know the old hymn, this hymn might almost be unrecognizable. But I had listened to that hymns album so much when it came out that was the new traditional way to do it. Like, that's just the way I had led it for years. And so I went there and played that specific version at this church. And an old lady came up to me. She goes, and she had a smile on her face. And I don't think she was trying to be mean, but she goes, who sings that version of How Great Thou Art? And I was like, oh, it was a band called Ascend the Hill. They have a whole hymns album. She goes, oh, why can't they sing it normally?
Is that a neg?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why can't they sing it normally?
And she said them, but really she was saying me because I was doing their version of it. And she was kind of being nice, and she appeared to be a sweet old lady and said everything very sweetly. But it did hit me that day, like, oh yeah, I just changed her hymn, and she was distracted by it at best. And anyway, so I love that commitment to sticking with the melody and the lyrics for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I get stuff like that all the time. Sometimes I'll get that, and I've done the original melody, and they ask why I didn't do it the original way. Oh. And I have to say, actually, this is the original way. You learned the different way, not a wrong way. See, I almost said wrong. See, don't say wrong, Nathan.
How dare you?
Different way. But there's several hymns that I had to relearn because I learned, like, Take My Life and Let It Be. Yeah. I grew up with Chris Tomlin's version.
Okay,
you know, here am I, that one, you know, he changes the whole melody, and I didn't know because that's the only version I ever heard.
Yeah.
Back and I learned it, and I was like looking at the sheet music, and I'm like, that's not the hymn I know. So I had to relearn it, and there's like 3 or 4 that I had to do, and again, that's a context thing. That's like, at some church, would sing the original version of Take My Life, and they would be like, what? This isn't. Why are you singing this? This is not how Chris Tomlin does it. In which case, you know, you do the version they know, because again, it's about singing. It's not about something sacred in the originalness. It's just about leading your congregation and singing. So
that's true. Do you know why Chris Tomlin doesn't drive in the snow?
No.
His chains are gone.
Oh,
okay. That might be a good place to land right there. I think that might be good. This was a good conversation. I appreciate you coming on here. I think there is a lot of wisdom. Let me recap. Treat your congregation like a mission field, not as trying to make them be something that they're not. Go about it like a pastor, a missionary, and think about what they need. And that leads into the next thing, like give them a balanced diet of what they need, whether that's hymns, new songs. Think about the lyrics. Read the lyrics at least once is what Nathan said. At least
maybe
once.
Twice. Maybe twice.
Maybe more. Maybe memorize them. I don't know. And then be Jesus focused. When we are gathering, it's different than the personal worship time. Not saying songs written about benefits of Christ are wrong. Like that's awesome that we do get to benefit with our relationship with God, with Jesus. But when we gather as a corporate body, like that time is to actually take our eyes off of ourselves and give ourselves to him in worship. And so, especially in the musical time, and it kind of goes back to the balanced diet. Like not every single song has to be, say the word Jesus or God in it, but make it God word. And yes, there can be benefits in it, but I think thinking through those three things may help some of us shape our worship gatherings for the better. You have any closing thoughts there, Nathan?
I do not.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you for coming on here. Everything linked down below. Go check out Reawaken Hymns, and go buy some stuff. Is that a merch shirt? Is that like your shirt?
I think I do have it on there, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is my shirt, yeah.
It is your shirt. Well, I mean, I know that one's yours, but I just want to know.
You can't have this one.
Okay, good. All right, we'll see y'all in the next video.